So 1, 2, 3. Oh, we're recording.
You always
All
do
right.
that to me.
Welcome back everybody to another Epidose of these crazy fools that just eat meat and never stop talking about it. Today we have a special guest. We've got with us today Rebekah Farmer. She's here to share her story in the hopes that it'll help other people out there. So why don't you give us the rundown on your story there, Rebekah?
Awesome. Thank you so much for reaching out and giving me an opportunity to share my story. I am just as passionate as you guys clearly are to just spread the good news and give hope to people who otherwise feel hopeless. All of you have, as you just shared with me, what you've been through and what kind of brought you to carnivore. My heart just goes out to each and every one of you because it makes me so happy that we found carnivore. And there are so many people that feel like it's forever, feel like their diagnosis is chronic and there's nothing that they can do. So I am 28 years old. And I actually thought that I was 29 until yesterday when I checked with my mom and I realized I was 28. So that's really embarrassing, but I don't know what happened on my last birthday. 28, and I have been ketogenic for over 15 years. I've never been on the standard American diet. I was paleo and then keto. My mom never gave us pop. She never gave us the Gushers in our lunch. I was lucky if I got chocolate chips in my peanut butter sandwich. And I'm really, really grateful for that. And I ran into chronic pain and mood disorders in 7th grade. Even before that, I was diagnosed with osteoporosis in 6th grade, which is really young to be having issues like that, like legitimate osteoporosis. And then I was diagnosed with, I was rushed to the emergency room in 7th grade. I thought that I was having a heart attack. I was diagnosed with costochondritis, which is inflammation of the chest tissue. And that's also when they discovered that I had degenerative disc, and they diagnosed me with anxiety, of course, and they sent me home on anxiety meds. I think that's when I was put on clonazepam for the first time. And then
how old were you then?
This was 7th grade, so gosh.
Wow. 12, 13?
Yeah, 12, 13.
Maybe younger, 14. Really young. And so I ended up going to a psychiatrist shortly after that because I was dealing with major mood issues, ADHD, severe depression, really hard depression, insomnia, and narcolepsy, which I didn't even know what narcolepsy was, but I had legitimate narcolepsy. Anxiety, OCD like crazy. And I do think that what I've been through in my life definitely played a role into all of this. But it does for all of us. What we've been through, trauma is big. I've moved around a lot, like 13 times before 6th grade. So I was already going through quite a bit. And anyways, I saw a psychiatrist and she put me on Adderall, clonazepam, and Ambien. And I talked to my parents. I was like, I don't know what else to do, So they're like, okay. I took those for 13 years and they told me that there was no harm in taking them long term, which is just nuts. Benzopidines, you're not supposed to take more than 30 days.
Wow.
Yeah, that's quite a cocktail.
And I built up a tolerance to these too. So I was always, especially the amphetamines, ramping those up. And I was wired. I was a zombie. And I'm so grateful that my brain works because if anyone could burn out their neurotransmitters, it would be me, like permanently. Yeah. And I was very afraid of that, especially when I started withdrawing because I was suffocating, like having suffocation attacks on a regular basis. I had to move back in with my parents, but I'll back up. So took those
Can I
for 13
ask
years.
you real quick?
Yeah.
How much was the highest dose that you were taking of Adderall?
I was taking 60 milligrams 2 times a day.
Whoa.
Yeah. And
Now, all these are pretty addictive, aren't they?
Very.
oh, extremely,
Very
extremely.
addictive.
Man.
Yes.
And so young.
And so young.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I know. I mean,
if you've
she
ever
just threw
lived
me
with-
on them.
If you've ever lived with somebody that's been using Ambien, it's scary what happens when it
Yes.
takes.
Yes,
Oh my
Ambien
gosh.
is scary.
I would love to get into this. That stole my personality. It
Yeah.
stole me. And that's the true addiction that I have lived through, because it took my personality. And I'm so grateful for my family. You know, they did help me get through it, but I was going to say something else.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, I love it. It's really good. But anyways.
So your parents tried to wean you off? Is that the?
No.
Okay.
So I tried, my family takes medications. So I should mention that from a very young age, I've always been surrounded by medical issues. My father had severe chronic pain growing up, rheumatoid arthritis, and my older sister, she has had grand mal seizures since I was born, my older sister, and she still has them. And she actually just started keto again because it takes away her seizures. And
Wow.
for a long time, she was, you know, pretty stubborn about, I want to eat the way I want to eat, and, you know, living with my parents and debilitated. But she has a daughter now, so it's kind of like, you owe it to the rest of the world, you know, to take this more seriously. And when I visited my family very recently, they saw how much I've come back from the dead, and they pretty much forced my sister to start eating better. So I grew up watching my sister have grand mal seizures, not even understanding. All I knew is that I felt like it was my job to be the strong one, to be the soldier who was going to figure out these health issues and help them. So I bottled up my issues for a long time. And when I was having chronic pain and mood disorders, I bottled it up for a very long time. And I just didn't think they were serious enough to take care of, because pretty much anything, if you watch someone go through a grand mal seizure on a regular basis, you compare that to anything, and it's like, I'm not dealing with anything. You know, she would pass out, she wouldn't breathe, and it was just terrifying. So it was kind of like, we only have time to deal with this. So I, later on in high school, around 10th grade, I started going to a chiropractor because I was still dealing with major pain, and I found out that I had scoliosis. And honestly, the chiropractor has helped a lot, a ton. And I was put into physical therapy. I have been through physical therapy 4 times now, and this is the first time in my life that it has ever done anything.
Wow.
I truly believe that all of that stuff, it just doesn't make a difference unless you're getting nutrition right. And then I was diagnosed with more issues. So I started to work with functional medicine doctors when I ran into crippling anxiety to the point where I could not breathe. I was suffocating. And this happened right after I had wisdom tooth removal surgery. And I truly believe that that was basically the last straw for my gut. I was put on opioids and antibiotics, and something just snapped. And so that's when I ran to my aunt. Not going to mention her name here because she prefers that, but she is amazing, and she has taught me so much of what I know from a very young age. She helped me get my period back. This is why I've been doing keto for so long. And she helped me wean off of my medications. And that's when I embarked upon a much more strict version of keto, because I couldn't live my life. I was living apart from my parents at the time, and I couldn't. I had to move back in with my parents, because what am I going to do? Call 911 like every time I start suffocating? And I was calling them to come over and massage me. I was in so much pain. I can't even describe. It was just so crazy. My body and my brain were completely shutting down. And so I did stricter version of keto, and it was helping a lot. Around that time, that's when I started working with more functional medicine doctors. I got off of my medications, which was really rough, especially because when I moved back in with my parents, they actually required me to take my clonazepam again when I had been weaning off of it, because my panic attacks were so bad. And that's quite embarrassing to say, but from their standpoint now, it's understandable. I was so hard to live with. But that set me back, and it was really hard. So I started going to functional medicine doctors. That's when I was diagnosed with, it was terrifying. I was diagnosed with chronic Lyme disease, scleroderma, crest scleroderma. That's when I finally went to like a GI doctor also, and infectious disease doctor. So I had IBS, IBD, diverticulitis, gastroparesis, slow transit colon. I developed ulcerative colitis later on, to the point where I couldn't eat without involuntarily vomiting, which was really scary to go through. So many other issues: Addison's disease, Hashimoto's, hypothyroid. So the Addison's and the Hashimoto's and the adrenal fatigue that hit so bad with the Lyme disease, those lifted when I did strict keto, when I ramped up the fat like crazy. And I really, I resonate with Emily very much, because she's all about that high fat. And I just don't think that, when our brains need to repair themselves, especially the state of my neurotransmitters and stuff after all those medications, I needed it. So I continued to do keto for a while, because I thought that was what God wanted me to do forever. Like, I'm overcoming this stuff. But then I started to lose rapid amounts of weight. And everyone was like, well, you're doing keto. That's the weight loss diet. And it's like, you don't understand. I was eating 6,000 calories every day and losing weight. And this went on for over a year. And I went to doctors, and they just kept telling me, you've got an eating disorder, because you're on the ketogenic diet and you're losing weight. You're doing this on purpose. And I'm not kidding. They wouldn't even run tests. But I was stubborn, because I didn't want to get off of keto. That was the only way that I wasn't bedbound. And I was very stubborn with that. So I ended up in the hospital at one point. My functional medicine doctor sent me there. She said, I want you to go to the multi-specialist unit. But I had to check in at the emergency room. So when they ask you, are you having any thoughts of harming yourself? Worst timing to be playful. I said, well, yes and no, because I have a lot of autoimmune disease and my body is essentially attacking itself. So just because of that one comment, I was sent to the psych ward in the basement and held there for a day in a room with no windows. I'm a tiny room, no windows. They wouldn't let my mom come in. I couldn't talk to anyone. Then they moved me to the trauma center for a day. Then I was in the crisis center for 2 days. And they held me there. They held me there for probably 3 more days. And I kept asking, I mean, they wouldn't let me leave. And I kept telling my mom, we've just got to get out of here. And she's like, they literally are telling me that you can't leave. So after that 3 days, I get sent to the eating disorder unit. And I find out that one of the nurses in the trauma unit petitioned to have me sent to the eating disorder unit.
Wow.
Because I told her that I was on the ketogenic diet for my autoimmune symptoms, and she saw that I was underweight, and she had the goal to petition. I didn't even know you could do this. So you have to get a bunch of different doctors to sign off on it. She spent 3 days doing this just to send me there. And they told my mom that she couldn't believe anything I said. And they said, your daughter is dying. She has an eating disorder. And her stomach is going to shrink to the point where she is not going to be able to refeed anymore. And there is some truth to what was going on. I was having major complications, but I should have been treated a different way. And
yeah,
so
if you're eating 6,000 calories a day,
but
how
no
is
one
that
knew.
an eating disorder?
You know, I wasn't.
They thought you were
saying that
lying?
to anyone. Yeah, they thought I was lying. So when I was in the eating disorder unit, first of all, right off the bat, I was like, I'll eat whatever you give me, you know, like, I talked to the dietitian. I was like, look, I don't do well with carbohydrates or sugar. And she's like, I believe you, but there's nothing that you can do about it here. And there were nurses in there who were like, you're going to be fed the standard diabetic diet, which is 75% carbohydrates, extremely low fat. And I was in so much pain. They also put me back on Ambien because I wasn't sleeping well. And I was like, I don't need to take it. Like, give me some Benadryl or something.
Holy cow.
They put me on, I wasn't using the bathroom at all. I didn't go poop for an entire month. The entire month I was in there. It wasn't until the last week that they gave me a bottle of magnesium citrate.
They kept you there for a month?
A month.
Holy cow.
And this is eating 6 times per day of crap. And I was just, I don't know if that was more painful than being crippled in bed and having, you know, suffocation attacks. Honestly, that was the most mentally trying time of my entire life. They wouldn't let me stand. So I have fibromyalgia as well. And even standing and stretching, they were like, that's considered exercise. You have to sit.
What?
So, yeah, I'm not kidding you. I'm not
This
kidding
is
you.
abuse. This is abuse.
It was, and you can only imagine like what it did to me mentally. It tore me apart because I was just starting to make progress, and it's like, oh my gosh. And so I did gain 10 pounds in there, and at the end of it, the doctor sat me down with myself and my parents, and she said, your daughter has exhibited 0 signs of an eating disorder. Because orthorexia, which is what they used to get me in there, which is, it's, you know, supposedly being paranoid or overly concerned about what you're eating, that's not an actual a diagnosed eating disorder. So they should not have held me there. And I ended up checking myself out involuntarily because my parents were still, this is all that they could think of to help me. You know, I didn't even know why I had lost so much weight, and I'm getting there. But obviously I was very upset with my family. I felt so alone. So many of my friends, I came back home and they were like, you have an eating disorder and you need to admit it. And it's like, I didn't do this to myself. I don't know why this happened, but I don't. And
well, let me ask you, do you have a theory now as to why you're...
Oh yeah, I'm getting there.
Oh, okay.
All why I lost all that weight is what you're...
Why you're eating so much and not able to absorb the calories is...
Yes. Yeah.
So when was this hospitalization and the eating disorder place?
What year was that?
Okay, let me think.
Or how old were you?
So I was prohibited to work in 2017 because of Lyme disease, and I couldn't function. So it was right after that. probably near the end of 2017
Oh
when
God,
I
that
was
was
in
recent.
the hospital. Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
I cannot believe that this is still happening to people.
Right.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
yeah.
sorry, me and Emily actually take this stuff personally because we're both in the healthcare field and the mental health field, and it's abominations and stuff that happen to you that make me and Em want to break off from the system and make like our own thing
But
and
they
everything.
need
So
us.
just a bit of a
They
sidebar,
need
but
us in
it's
there to
an
spread the
absolute
truth.
travesty.
Yes. Yeah. They even
So-
told me that gluten, I was like, okay, well, what about gluten? Can I avoid that? And they're like, that's an eating disorder too. Like they didn't believe in
What?
science. They didn't
But
believe
then
in
there's
science.
actual in this day. I mean, at that time period, they have all
Yeah.
the. Oh my God.
Yeah, it was like going back in
Wow.
time, and these people, it was a nightmare. And even some of the nurses, they would bring their own lunch. One of the nurses was on keto.
Oh God.
Like she was bringing her own avocado. Like I saw her eat every day. I was like, that girl's doing keto. It just sucked. It was horrible. They basically teach you to deny any signal that your body is trying to send you, and they think that it's an eating disorder. And that's not a way to help people heal, even if they actually have an eating disorder. And the people that I met in there, I could just go into the stories of these people who are dealing with real eating disorders. But I met one of my best friends now there, and I'm rooting for her to try carnivore, but she is still going through treatments. She's younger than me, and she's been getting shock therapy, and she's been in treatment for years and years and years. And it breaks my heart because doctors are still treating people this way. And I was just starving. When they allow you to have 2 condiments, and when I first got there, I was like, I'm going to do the best I can do with what I can do. So I was asking for 2 butters every time I ate, and a mustard. And all of the other patients in there started catching on to what I was doing. They're like, why are you trying to eat more fat? And I was like, that is how I thrive. That's the only way that I can even survive. And so they started asking for peanut butter and butter, and they actually made rules because I was breaking all the rules, and they're like, butter is now a macronutrient and it counts toward your fat every day.
Oh, my
it was
gosh.
vicious. So I got out of there, and I was forced to work with eating disorder therapists to live under my roof with my parents. And that was really rough. My parents and I have been through a lot of
This is
trauma.
after you were let out. You still had to deal with it.
I had to continue to work with them, and I was lucky that I didn't have to go to, what do they call it? They have a step down approach where they will send you to a place that's more relaxed. I was in the urgent setting where they monitor you and they test my blood sugar 25 times a day. But normally they'll send you somewhere where it's a house and there's still a doctor, but you don't have nurses on staff. And then they'll send you home finally, and you are required to work with therapists and still attend these things in the step down program with groups and stuff. It's for support.
Did you say
but
they tested your blood sugar 25 times a day?
Oh yeah, first thing in the morning, even when I was still sleeping, test your blood sugar, wait an hour before breakfast, test your blood sugar before eating, test it after eating, test it before your snack. I was eating 6 times a day, so you can think about.
Oh,
And then, I mean, it was all the time. And then half the time I'm having hypoglycemia, and what do? They give you sugar tablets. So it just gets worse and worse. So I had many times where I was having hypos until finally about halfway through, I told them, give me some peanut butter and an apple if I have to. And that's when it started stabilizing, believe it or not, some protein and fat. But I was getting glucagon shots, and it's just a disaster. It was a disaster.
It's a nightmare. It's an absolute nightmare.
I was so traumatized. Every day.
How could you not be?
It was crazy. My faith, I'm so, I don't know how some people go through that. otherwise. But so I was required to work with therapists and a dietitian when I got home, and I had to check myself out against medical advice for them to approve, for me to get away with not having to go into the step down treatments. So I was prepared for my family to not be happy with that. So I found a dietitian who was a little bit more open-minded, and she let me do a more keto approach. And after some time had passed, I was allowed to do keto if I was able to keep my weight up. And my family was watching me like a hawk. And just everywhere I went, I was so judged. And it was really hard. And so when I stopped pumping myself with carbohydrates, started losing some weight again, but the weight loss continued. And so I was finally diagnosed with with C. diff. So C. diff
Wow.
is something that people pick up in hospitals from being treated in hospitals. And it was stealing all of my nutrients. And I wouldn't doubt that I had this for years, honestly.
So C. diff is why you could not
Gain weight.
Okay.
Yes.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And it was a relief to get that diagnosis. Such a relief.
Makes sense.
Yes. And at that time, I was also diagnosed with something called central sensitization syndrome. I waited a year to get in with these doctors at Duke Medicine, the rheumatologists. And it was right after I got out of the hospital that I got that diagnosis as well. So it basically encompasses everything that I was dealing with, like anxiety, digestive issues, mood disorders, insomnia, chronic pain. And they told me, they were the only doctors that encouraged me to continue doing what I was doing. They said, you should continue the holistic route because clearly you've been through enough to know what works better. So they said, just keep chipping away at it. And they said, there are a lot of other people like you where we can't put them in a box or label them. But basically it's really showed me that the problem was my central nervous system. And I knew that it had to be supported to heal. So the C. diff, though, continued to be an issue. I had to go through 13 rounds of antibiotics, which I was resistant to all of them. And this went over I had to go through this for months of taking different antibiotics and continued to be resistant. That in itself was horrible. Antibiotics make people feel horrible.
Yeah.
Oh, and I'll also mention, I'm sure you guys are familiar with the keto rash that some people get. I have never had that before, but when I came back from the hospital, I had a severe keto rash when I started doing keto again. And I truly believe it's because of all the toxins that I ate. I've never eaten that poorly in my life.
Wow.
That's right. Yeah.
So, where was I? So the antibiotics, I had to go through that, and I was approved for a fecal transplant. Did that, still tested positive. Did another fecal transplant, and it went away. And I was so happy. I continued to do keto, and then it came back in a month. Started feeling poorly again, and I tested again, and it came back positive.
So the fecal transplant can get rid of the C. diff, but in your case, it didn't?
Yes.
Okay.
And so I had a third fecal transplant, and I still test positive for C. diff. Still. They believe that it has seeded in my gut. I'd like to test again in another couple of months, but as of January of this past year, still tested positive. But nothing nothing helped me gain weight or nutrients or get my life back until I started carnivore. So
When did you start carnivore?
I started strict carnivore in just July of last year. And that is when I was at my wit's end. They said, you're going to have to be hooked up to a feeding tube and remove your colon. And that's when I finally said, I've got to try carnivore. I had so many people tell, really good people tell me. Danny Vega planted the seed. When I was having my autoimmune issues, I was still living at home with my parents. I told him, look, I'm not feeling well. I need to gain weight. And he was like, some people with autoimmune disease react to like spinach and stuff. And deep down, I was angry because I didn't want to let go of that stuff. But I trust him. And so I also heard Michaela Peterson on the Joe Rogan podcast.
Yep.
And I saw Sean, and I was so judgmental, you guys. When I heard about carnivore, when the carnivore cast came out, I was like, all these people are overeating protein. They don't know anything about anything. I was just totally married to keto. And I thought Sally Norton was kind of nuts, talking about oxalates and stuff. So I tried carnivore about, I think, 8 times and failed each time because I kept trying to do just beef, salt, and water. And that for me is too restrictive. I felt so much worse. And it's not like I was going back to a high carb diet. I was just going back to keto with my keto treats. And I needed it. I was only able to stick with it when I made it my own. And I threw out all of the comments on Facebook and those groups. I think those groups are amazing. But with what I was going through, I needed to think it through myself. I got so much advice because everyone wanted to help. And I felt so lost, and I had no intuition. I wasn't paying attention to what I needed individually. And I took medical coding for years, so I know a thing or two about the human body. And then I'm also a certified health and life coach. I have experience doing keto. I've seen it save people's lives. But it was my will. I was stubborn, and I didn't want to give up my keto treats because I was addicted. And trying to eat at a surplus, like 6,000 calories a day, it's a lot easier when you can just eat keto ice cream. Like, I had to do things like that to try to eat more. And it manifested itself into binge eating. And I did not really lay it all down until I was in that hospital room, and they said, you're going to have to remove your colon. And that's when I realized I've got to cut out all this extra crap and eat meat. So I spoke to, this is just last year in July, I spoke to the dietitian in the hospital. Thank God they couldn't send me to an eating disorder unit because I had the C. diff. So I was being held in isolation.
Good.
And I spoke privately with the dietitian, and I said, I laid down my entire story, and I said, please just let me eat meat. And so she agreed to do this behind the doctor's backs. And she put me in touch with the chef. So I was able to request multiple entrees of meat, hard-boiled eggs, and butter every day. And I was stashing them in my room. And I filled out the slip for the lunches they were also sending me, which was just sugar and crap. And I was throwing it away. And I gained 4 pounds in a week of doing that. And that's when the dietitian said, and also, as soon as I started doing that, no more glucagon shots, no more involuntarily throwing up. My blood sugars were stable. My electrolytes finally stabilized. It worked so fast that I came to the point where they couldn't hold me there any longer because I was not unstable enough they couldn't tell the insurance anything.
Wait, at that time you were extremely strict?
Yes,
He was
that's
in
when
the
I started doing.
hospital.
Yeah, so it was a
Only-
hospital. It was no keto treats, nothing. You were totally strict.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. because they were allowing me to have people bring me food. So I was like, okay, bring me these keto ice creams and, all these things that are easy for me to eat because I'm going to gain weight in this hospital room. I kept throwing up and getting sick. My blood sugars were all over the place. So I decided to go carnivore in the hospital because it wasn't working. So when I cut out that stuff and it wasn't the highest quality meat, but I was very careful. I didn't do anything with sauce. I spoke with the chef. I made sure, are you cooking this in any oil? I don't want to touch it. And all of my symptoms, the symptoms that were urgent and life-threatening, they disappeared. I was able to put on 4 pounds. I was 70 pounds at this point. And I had tried everything. So they finally sent me home. The dietitian told the doctor what we did. Bless her heart. And the doctor said, go home and do your weird all meat diet. So that's what I have done ever since.
So
and-
did
That's a
you
victory.
add something besides just meat?
When? In the
'Cause-
hospital room?
Well, you had said
after
that,
you get out.
yeah, you had said that you didn't react well to just beef, salt, and water. Did you
Oh,
add
yeah.
that?
Yes. So in the hospital, I asked for meat, butter, and eggs. So it was all from the animal kingdom.
She was having hard-boiled eggs, he said, right?
Got
Yeah, and I didn't have any cheese. I was too nervous about cheese.
Yeah, cheese is a slippery slope.
But you
Yeah.
you stopped with the keto treats or any type of keto stuff. You were full carnivore from there. Got it.
Right. So when I got home, it wasn't easy breezy. And this is what I would like to share with everyone. Yeah, it was amazing. It was a miracle. It is a miracle. But it still mentally was a big struggle for me. I love baking. I loved the keto treats. And I tried reintroducing spinach. And my ankles were so swollen the next day that I couldn't fit my feet into my shoes.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, this is all real life. Like, this is legitimate. And just
I'm guessing you don't have very big feet to begin with.
I mean, I was really tiny, but it was huge. It was crazy. I was so swollen. My mood too was so affected. And I allowed dairy. I allowed myself to be very flexible in the beginning because I needed a way to stick with it. I didn't want to feel restricted. So I allowed vanilla, liquid stevia, and dairy. And I pretty much made it as hyper palatable as possible because I just wanted to gain weight. I did not want to be forced to go into the hospital again. And dairy is so addictive. So I used it against myself, essentially, just to put on some more weight. And that was just, my energy improved within the first week. Chronic pain started going down within 2 weeks. And it has not been, healing is not linear. It is not. But I will say that it has been progressively better consistently since going home from the hospital. And I have reached a point where, similar to what you were saying, Tom, that I am thriving more than I ever have in my life. I have never been able to even imagine feeling this good. I've never known life without some kind of pain or digestive issue. And my mood is, it's incredible. For anyone who knows what it's like to have real depression and anxiety, I used to want to rip out my own skin. Yeah. My OCD behavior ruled my life. And it just got worse and worse with the more Adderall I took. All of that is gone. I never thought I would be free from OCD. It ruined my relationships. It got in the way of everything. And I hated it. It was a prison. And that's gone now. I even just, I've put on 50 healthy pounds now. And that's intimidating to think, okay, I'm going to have to put on a ton of weight to be healthy. Putting on weight can be uncomfortable. I truly believe this is the best way to refeed for anyone that needs to gain healthy weight. It removes all the complications of refeeding. And the weight goes on beautifully if you do it right, because it's all hormonal. I mean, my body composition is fantastic. I'm happy to keep gaining weight, honestly. And it didn't feel uncomfortable. So when I gained the weight in the hospital, I felt very uncomfortable in my own body. Very uncomfortable. Like I said, I wanted to rip out of my own skin, and it really messed with my psyche. But gaining weight on carnivore, it was bliss, and it's just more and more exciting. So I think that's also a major part of it. These people who are treated in the hospital and gain a ton of weight in a short period of time, it's traumatizing, but also we're already so mentally unstable, and carnivore, it changed everything for me. It just changed my life. So I'm at the point now where I wake up in the morning smiling, sincerely smiling, and so grateful for this. It's like a new life. I feel like this is a rebirth. I feel like a different person. And I'm just so grateful. I'm really grateful. And I'm working with people now who also felt hopeless and have diagnoses that are, supposedly chronic and forever. And it's like, that is not true. I don't believe that there is anything that is not reversible. And I don't think that the carnivore diet is the best diet for everyone to do long term. I don't. I think that we are all very bio-individual, but the carnivore diet is always going to be beneficial for anyone who needs to figure out how nutrition works best with their bodies. It's the ultimate elimination diet. You're eating meat, which is the most bioavailable nutrients. I mean, it's better than being hooked up to a feeding tube.
Absolutely.
Seriously. For anyone whose gut is destroyed, it's the total solution. And it's like, it would be a dream to take this into traditional healthcare. I thought about, what if I could be a dietitian or work in that eating disorder unit, be one of the nurses, and what if I had the authority to actually help people the right way? It would change just thinking about a nation that was more fat adapted. Oh my gosh, our world would be so different. There would be less car accidents. There would be less divorce. And maybe these things sound extreme to some people to make such a statement, but it's like, you don't know the person I used to be. I used to be so irritable and snap at everybody. Yep. I loved people, but it was like, I didn't have control. I did not have control. It's just crazy. So that is my story in a large nutshell.
It's an impressive story. I got to say, you probably have set some sort of record on potentially deadly diagnoses, because that was a hell of a list. I was like, wow, that could kill you. That could kill you. That could kill you. That has definitely killed people that we know of. So that's amazing that you recovered from all that. And I wholeheartedly agree that we're not all the same, and the diet's got to be tailored. I think even in the athletic world, the more and more people are starting to realize that red meat needs to be the core of your diet. But not everybody can get enough calories from meat, particularly athletes, people with special conditions and stuff like that. But you're right, meat's the most bioavailable, and it's the most nutritionally dense. And I think part of the problem is that people have been led in the other direction, thinking meat, in particular red meat, is bad for you, and somehow plants are always better for you. And it's the exact opposite. It really comes down to red meat's the best food, and we all tolerate different amounts of plant-based foods. So
yeah, well said. Yeah, I'm so sick of this black or white thinking,
right,
with everyone. Like even keto, yeah, it can be harmful if you're not eating enough protein for a long time.
Sure.
Or like you said, there are certain vegetables that are low oxalate and pretty much harmless. But I will even still say just the fiber alone, if it's low oxalate, can cause so many issues.
Sure.
And I'm still baffled by this. I recently tried introducing romaine lettuce, which, I mean, it has 0.1 grams of oxalates in like 2 cups. And I woke up the next morning with dark circles under my eyes for the first time in my life. I didn't even have that when I was chronic adrenal fatigue. And my mood was not, I was a different person. It's like, I'm not messing with this anymore. I'm just not playing games. It's really interesting.
Well, we've been brainwashed to believe that spinach and broccoli are like these incredible foods, and we have
Powerhouses, superfoods.
powerhouses, and there's no possible way that they could be bad for you, or they could have any negative side effects, and then, as we know, and as I've said many times before, sometimes you just got to be your own best doctor, because the doctors keep failing you, and you've got to feel your way through it. It's like you said, you know, you got to figure out what works and what doesn't. It could be little things like how much fat versus how much protein, or it could be how much to eat at a given meal, or it could be what you can and can't include. Dairy is all over the place for people. Like I said, cheese is a slippery slope, and
Yeah.
you got to work that out.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's why we can be so valuable to people as coaches. You can get the foundation right, like get some animal nutrients, animal meat and fat. That's the other thing. Like keto is fantastic, but if you're not getting animal fat, you're not getting your vitamins either. But there's so much bio-individuality between everyone, and what works best for me is not going to work best for the next person. There's no one size fits all. And on top of that, as we heal, I truly do believe that our bodies require a different sort of set of nutrients.
Absolutely.
I crave different things at different times, and they're clear. Right now I've eaten at least 15 egg yolks every day for the past week.
Wow.
And I hadn't eaten eggs for months. I cut out the eggs for a long time because I didn't feel right with them. But now, like, I'm not stopping because my body and brain are soaking it up. And there's a right time for everything except for processed fat and carbohydrates and sugar.
Yeah.
But even within the carnivore diet, it looks different from person to person, depending on your goals, what you're trying to overcome. And then I love that you mentioned how much we're eating or when we're eating. Lifestyle is huge too. That's why this is a lifestyle. It's a big picture thing, but the carnivore diet supports healing.
For sure. Yeah. And keto is great, and a lot of people flourish on it. And at the very least, even like we find that like a vegan or a hardcore keto person can often do really well on carnivore because they're used to changing their diet. They're used to completely changing what how they eat. But as well, keto has also got a lot of pitfalls because there's so many fat bombs and artificial sweeteners, and it's wide open on basically any low carb vegetable or stuff like that. And those people are shocked to find out sometimes just don't agree with them, or you just fat bomb your way into excess calories when most people are trying to lose body fat and improve their composition. Right. And like you said, there's always that risk of not enough protein, especially animal protein, because everybody's afraid of gluconeogenesis. They think anytime they eat an extra scrap of meat, their blood sugar is going to skyrocket and their insulin's going to skyrocket. And then
we're all type 1 diabetics, right?
So and then you find out that just isn't the case for most people, especially after they're adapted and their body's used to the low carbohydrate diet. They tend not to make if they get a little bump in blood sugar, that's usually it. It's usually no big deal. So.
I agree. That whole thing, it was a process for me because starting from 70 pounds, I was severely insulin resistant. And even just putting on some muscle, my blood sugars, they don't budge. And I can get away with eating 300 grams of protein in one sitting. I'm not kidding you. My blood sugar never goes above 85. So that really speaks to, we're all at a different place. And I had to be willing to go higher protein because my body was starving for those nutrients. My brain was starving for those nutrients, including fat. I've always done high fat meat, but I just had to let go of the whole gluconeogenesis, worry about that. And yeah, my ketones dropped. I used to be in like 6.0 all the time. And that's what really helped with Addison's and that stuff. But that was not working for me this time around. But I stayed in ketosis the whole time.
Yeah.
So it's not about your reading of ketones. I think that it depends on your goal. I do feel better eating more fat and less protein. I really do. But at the same time, if you're not eating enough protein for whatever your body is going through, you're going to struggle with cravings. And that'll just it'll hold you back forever.
Yeah, I'd like to point out the difference. Just like Emily and I have gotten to know each other over the last 6 months really well, and she's less than half my size. And some days she eats more calories, and much of that is fat. And but on the other hand, I tend to need a higher protein ratio, but I actively lift weights. That's the thing I love to do. So I have to support a lot more muscle, which takes more protein. And so if you pencil it all out, somehow she's able to burn more calories, and I don't even know how she does it. But I have a higher protein demand, so that's just an example of how individuals' needs can vary.
Yeah. I think with Emily, your story, it speaks to healing your brain a lot. And I think that healing brains takes a lot of calories, a ton. That's just how I feel. I know that when it makes sense that when we're stressed out, sometimes we feel like we need to eat more, probably because we really need to be supported on that level.
Well, and I love what you said about, I had to figure it out for myself. I had to figure out what was going on with my body, because I'm the only one inside here. I'm the only one inside here that really recognizes. And whenever I bite into a piece of fat, I have a visceral response. Yeah. My body gets like excited, and like I'm just like I'm so happy to be eating this fat, because my brain and my body knows this is what I need. Now we're going to get nutrition. Yeah. Now we're going to get what
put into safety. It takes you out of fight or flight. It's like saying to your body, I'm supporting you finally.
Yes.
Not just your blood sugars. It works on a systemic level. This is what I try to educate people on, is like, if you have a central nervous system disorder or autoimmune disorder, your body has to be very well supported. Or people who lose their periods. I've helped so many clients get their periods back without carbohydrates by eating enough fat. Oh. You're so right. It sends that response to your body saying, I'm taking care of you. You are supported. And that is black and white, day and night to me.
You may not have seen the interview, Dr. Sean Baker and Zach Bitter, they have a podcast called Human Performance Outliers, and they had Dr. Chris Palmer on a while back, and he's a psychiatrist at Harvard, and he talked about how he works with a lot of schizophrenics, and he was talking about a patient who wanted to lose weight. So he's like, oh, you should try the Atkins diet. And if you really want to lose weight, cut out all the carbs, just eat meat. So this is kind of a pre-carnivore movement. And they noticed immediately, like, this guy's very severe psychiatric problems vastly improved. And he went on to talk that they knew from the research all the way back to the 60s that there is some sort of fuel crisis going on in the brain. And they didn't really understand it. They knew the psychiatric medications, although they alleviate symptoms, eventually make things worse and put weight on people. So we know there's some relationship between eating more fat and improving a lot of psychiatric problems. And I spent a lot of time in the autistic community. I have a group called Autistic Carnivores, and we're starting to see more and more research showing that mothers that have high blood sugar or high A1C scores are much more likely to have a child with autism. So we're starting to see that impact of blood sugar on brain development, because a lot of these autistic brain developments can actually be seen on an MRI. So the brain is physically developing differently.
Wow, that's amazing. I knew that oxalates. I've seen children with autism, they measured their oxalate levels in their blood, and it was much higher compared to those without. I think that too. But for the fat, it makes sense. Fat is a clean fuel. So anyone with even, diabetes type 3, aka Alzheimer's, or early onset Parkinson's, dementia, it's plaque building up in your brain from too much sugar. And being a glucose burner it creates oxidative stress. I don't care if you're the healthiest person in the world. It creates oxidative stress. And it's a dirty fuel to burn. So if you think about, if we're just burning fat, it burns clean. And it's just so protective. And that it's neuroprotective. That's what people need.
Yeah. Animal fat's been turned into a villain, and we're finding out that substituting things like carbohydrates or seed oils actually is much worse for you. So
yeah.
Rebekah, if I could give a Zoom hug, I would.
Oh, back at you. I'm hugging all of you.
Because oh my gosh.
You have a very compelling story, and I'm very grateful that you came on to share it with us. So, and anytime you wanna share more of your story or whatever, you're always welcome back. So
always.
Yeah.
Thank you. I would love to chat with you guys much more regularly, and I'm sure that we could all get into some eating disorders. Oops.
Yeah.
You're good. What? You're muted again. Go to unmute, and then you can talk, Rebekah. There we go.
Okay. Sorry.
It happens. Don't worry about it.
There's just so much that we could talk about. Eating disorders, mindset, finding what works best for you individually, and support. So what you guys are doing is amazing, because we need support. For me, when I was living with my family still, and everyone was like, you have an eating disorder, I listened to podcasts every day, because it's like, these are my people. They know where I'm coming from. So what you're doing is amazing, and I'm so grateful for you guys.
Yeah, that's why we do it, because if one video could just help one person out there, it's worth it. So we know that over time it's going to help more than one person. So especially just sharing our stories and all these intricate sort of things we went through to figure out what worked for us. Because you get on a keto diet and you see the person next to you that you're following, they're like losing weight like crazy, and they're becoming a CrossFit champion. And meanwhile, you've plateaued and your mood's better, but it's not perfect. And you're like, what the hell do I do now? I've been trying so hard. And I know, like, I'll be honest, when I started finding myself gravitating towards just eating meat, I was literally like out there looking for permission to do that, because it sounded so counterintuitive. It was so against what we're programmed to do. And then when I was like, well, Sean's a doctor, he just eats meat, that sounds good. And then it's like, oh wait, well, Carnivore Tribe is his Facebook group. Look at all these people in here. And then you get to know all the other characters like Charles Washington, Elisa Waiterman, and we've done an interview or two with some other people that have been a carnivore for more than 10 years, Amber O'Hearn and
Amber's amazing.
Yeah. So you find out they're there, and then you get that permission. You're like, yeah, I can be healthy at least for another 10 years. I'm going to go for it. Feels right.
Yeah. That's what I needed.
Well, and just to have that quality of life. I mean, like you said, you were not living,
Right.
you know, and now you've come back from the dead. And that's exactly how I felt. I was just like, oh, I don't care if I die tomorrow. This is great for this moment. This is the first time I've ever felt human.
Yeah, same. That's so true. I mean, and it's crazy how much it ties into everything in my life, like my relationships and like being able to be in the present moment and not being anxious. If like I deal with the amount of mental resilience that I have now compared to before is something that I never could have imagined.
We call
Well,
it.
I mean that. Well, we also call it, Emily coined the phrase center of brilliance. You know, we have the thing where it's like carnivore allows you to awaken your center of brilliance. It's like you were always this way. You were always this resilient. You always were this mentally strong. It's just when you're, like you said, when you're not feeding yourself the right way, you can't express it, you know, and nobody can, you know. So that's your center of brilliance. Sorry to steal your tagline, Emily, but
That's all right. That's all right. That's all right.
That's amazing. You should make t-shirts or something. I love that. Asking me about my center of brilliance.
Yeah, there you go. That's kicking.
I do have a t-shirt and a YouTube channel.
Oh, that's what's up.
And you know, I love your story, Rebekah, and everything about it. But I it's so sad that you're so young. I'm a bit on the young side myself, 31, and in the generations, our generation has the worst health, and it's so sad and it's so bad. And another thing I talk about in the carnivore community is I always felt like the sickest person I knew, because everyone else in my life, like my early 20s and my late 20s, just felt like I was falling further and further behind my peers because I was dealing with so many health conditions. And hard for you to work, hard for you to go to school, go to college. People are having relationships, getting married, you know, all that stuff. And here I am, you know, barely trying to make it to the next day because either I'm, you know, having a migraine, about to have a migraine, or having a migraine, or a sinus infection, or chronic pain, or adrenal fatigue. I mean, yeah. And so now I feel like I'm moving ahead. In the last year, I feel like I've surpassed peers of mine, you know, and they're starting to get sicker and sicker, and I'm becoming healthier and healthier. And another thing you said about was it not being linear. I think that is such an important point.
Yes.
You know, that's just, that needs to be said more, because I think when you look at someone like Sean, and he was already more or less healthy. So like I mean, he obviously notices a difference. You can see the difference and all that, but I feel like it's best to have conversations with normal people. I consider me, Emily, Raymond, you, Tom, to be more or less normal people, you know? And so it's like, oh, well, obviously Sean can do it because he's, you know, world champion, this, that, and the other. But it's like, no, everybody can do this, no matter where you're starting from. If you just make that first choice of that first meal to eat meat, you can change everything just with that one choice.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. It's the choice. I think that's, you know, it starts in your mind and making the decision that you're going to do this for yourself and no one else. It takes a lot of self-love too, you know, after being told to do the opposite and being told that the best thing for me to do is the total opposite of what I'm about to do. I did struggle with, you know, looking for acceptance and is this really okay to do? And I just had to throw it all out, you know? It's like, this is my life. I'm going to make the most of it. I don't care. Tell me I have an eating disorder for the rest of my life. I don't care. I don't care. I really don't. I think that some of those people would see me now, even still, and say that I have an eating disorder. Yeah. But
so that's
I feel
what I was
bad for them.
Even now, they know the difference of what I went through, how I looked, everything. And they still say, you have a problem.
And that speaks to their own personal issues.
Right.
That speaks to what they are unwilling to confront in themselves. A lot of people, they just want to keep popping the pills. They don't want to take responsibility for their health. And yes, there are situations where I think people need antibiotics, or people need medications, but that doesn't mean that you can't start to wean off of them.
Well,
All
and
I
that's
know
the
is,
thing. At 48, I used to be a big supplement guy. I used to try to treat everything with
Yeah.
like herbals or whatever, right?
yeah,
I mean, after carnivore, I take nothing at all.
Same here.
That's unheard of for me.
yeah, wow.
Yeah, your diabetes is supposed to be progressive there, young man.
That's right. Yeah, I have pre-diabetic. I was pre-diabetic also, and and my nurse told me, look, the best you can do is manage it, and it's gonna get worse. And they told me it was gonna get worse, and now they saw it reverse. Literally, I was a 6.0. I am now a 5.6. Yeah, I didn't reverse that much, but still, the fact that it reversed at all. They're like, with my glucose numbers, with everything, I don't look like I'm pre-diabetic anymore with my waist size. But yet they're like, oh, well, why don't you eat any vegetables? That will make you healthier. What do you not see? At what point do you say that you guys can't even trust your own eyes?
Yeah. And I still have people ask me all the time, when are you going to reintroduce vegetables? I don't want to. And that romaine lettuce that I tried, it's like, that sounds kind of refreshing. I used to make this, but I literally took a couple bites and I threw it out. I was like, okay, I feel like a rabbit. Why am I putting this nutrient void thing into my mouth? I want to eat with mindfulness. I want to use my food as medicine. And it also happens to be the most delicious thing on this planet. Who's going to complain about eating fatty meat?
Yeah.
Honestly, like, we have nothing to complain about, but we make it so difficult.
I'm at the point where it's so bad that, I have a family, 2 kids, wife, we have to go out to eat every special occasion, right? Yeah. And I actually don't like going out because, yes, I do carnivore, but it's dirty carnivore. They put crap on there. And now, we had our anniversary Thursday, and I'm breaking out because of it. And every time I hate doing it. So I don't even want that. I want to eat at home. That's
I totally agree.
But to make others understand that, it's just.
Yes. It's hard because, a lot happens with family gatherings and stuff. Right. I didn't even eat with my family on Easter, and I knew they all were like, this girl has got a bad eating disorder. But it's like, what do we all get? We literally just sit around and chit chat and then eat. It's all about eating. And it's hard to get over. I get it. But there are ways to make it doable. I think cooking at home is so much better too.
And first time in my life, I realized life doesn't revolve around food.
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to say. I feel so free that I don't think about food except for when I'm about to eat it. When I was on keto, all I thought about was my next meal. Yeah. All I thought about. And it was addiction.
Well, you had to measure it out an hour before you could eat. So
yeah, exactly. Right. That's the other thing, is the freedom of carnivore, letting go of, counting the carbohydrates, and just make sure it's from the animal kingdom. Start somewhere, and that's a really, really good place to start. And now when I'm done eating, I'm done eating. And I used to get anxious if I had a bunch of time left in my day. It's like, what do I do now? It's like, go live your life, read a book.
You're so right. That is probably the only, one of the little negatives other than social of carnivores. You have so much time on your hands. So much time.
Seriously.
Yeah. Because for me, it was either I was eating or I was in the bathroom most of the time. One of the two. Yeah. Which is crazy. I mean, I spent half an hour to an hour, 3 times a day in the bathroom.
That's crazy.
Which is nuts. I mean, now I go every 3 or 4 days, and it happens so quick. It kills all of my routine.
You don't even get to pick out your new memes. There's no point in bringing your phone to the toilet anymore.
Right. So I'm not even going down anymore. So that's killing a lot of things. So,
It does explain how you had so much time to explore all those conspiracy theories, though.
Thank you. That's right. I do have a lot more time on my hands. Seriously, I really, really do.
And
So
well, you know,
Raymond-
Emily takes the cake because she went raw, and Emily only eats raw because she got lazy. She's like, how lazy? How less planning can I put into eating? And yeah, Emily just eats raw. At
Still?
what? At
You just cut the
Still.
food up with a pair of scissors and eats it raw or frozen raw.
That's awesome.
And she has no dishes to wash. She just eats out of a Ziploc bag half the time.
That's what I was eating raw when I went to the hospital. So it didn't help.
Nice.
I had a bunch of raw ground beef and I was drenching it in olive oil.
The olive oil.
Because I was on keto. So.
I've actually had steak tartare that had olive oil on it. It actually tasted pretty good, but eventually
I don't touch it anymore. But
olive oil
yeah,
doesn't agree with me. But
the raw it's so great. It's so easy.
Yeah.
Like I have gotten lazy with cooking, honestly, but you know, it gives me, when I do have extra time, I do like to come up with, you know, fun things. Like I recently stuffed some squid with seasoned ground beef.
I saw those.
Legit
Those are so
was like
awesome.
ravioli. It was so good. It was identical to ravioli.
I want to try that.
Girl, it's so good because I'm not even like, I'm too lazy to make all this pork rind panko carnivore bread and chaffles.
Yeah.
I don't have time for that. But stuffing a squid tube with beef, it's so good. So I like to get creative. But even when I do stuff like that, I'm never disappointed just eating fat and meat. You know, it's fun. It's not something that I worship or need anymore. It's not entertainment. It's just like, this was, you know, that's something that I'm going to share with my family when I see them again, for people with kids or who need a little bit more, you know, variety.
So what are you on, or where are you on social media?
I'm at Tailored Keto Health, not because my name is Taylor, but because everything is tailored to our own bio-individual needs.
Yeah.
And I'm most active on Instagram. All of my links are there in my bio. I'm also at Tailored Keto Health on Facebook. My email is rcfarmer18@gmail.com. But if you just go to Instagram, you'll find everything else.
Yeah, or if you want to email that to me, I'll put it in the show notes for you.
Will do. Thank you.
Yeah, happy to do it. Well, it has been a real pleasure meeting you. We should probably wrap it up because I don't want to press your time too much. But
I could talk forever. I appreciate it though.
We can all talk forever too.
Yeah.
So it's our biggest problem. But it's been great having you. Your story is extraordinarily compelling, and we're all very happy for you. And we're all very happy that you came here and shared that. And we look forward to communicating with you more in the future and have you back. And we do sometimes just have private chats, so maybe you can have you in just to keep.
I would love that.
And
we want to support you.
Yeah.
Likewise, you guys are awesome.
Thanks.
I wish it were in real life. We're gonna have to. I want to meet up with people in real life. I really do, but this is the next best thing.
This is the next best thing. And this has been very helpful for all of us to be able to get together, support each other, help each other with social media, spread the stories, you know, get in each other's Facebook groups and help out, whatever it is, meet new people. You know, it was Justin's idea to reach out to you. He's like, oh yeah, we got to talk to her. And so we were all jumping on that right away because your story is amazing. And we're all very happy for your improvements.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Right back at all of you. You guys are awesome. Thank you.
Well, I just want to thank everybody for watching. Please subscribe. We've gotten some new subscribers. That's been very helpful. Please give it the thumbs up. Leave us some comments. Let us know what you think. And if you have any ideas or suggestions. And until next time, every time you see a vegetable or a piece of fruit, just remind yourself you don't need to eat your food's food. And also eat some meat, feel better, and whatever you do,
Don't fall down the carb hole.
I'm sorry. Could you say that again?
Don't fall down the carb hole.
don't fall
Okay,
down
so
the carb
good.
hole.
Carb creep is real.
That's right.